This is you. At 2:13 in the morning, your encrypted phone lights up with a photograph of a man standing outside a check cashing store in Houston. His name is Luis Moreno, 27 years old, strong build, no visible health issues, the kind of face most people would forget in seconds. But you do not forget faces like his because somewhere in Miami, a billionaire real estate developer has just been told his kidneys are failing faster than expected, and the official transplant list will not save him in time. That is where you come in. You are not the doctor who will cut the body open. You are not the patient lying in a private suite with a specialist on call and a family waiting for good news. You are the space between those two people. You are the voice on the secure line, the one who turns panic into a transaction and desperation into a schedule. When the rich run out of legal options, they start looking for someone like you. A second file appears under the photo. Blood type, tissue markers, lab notes, strong match, high probability. Your tester in Texas adds one short message: clean candidate. Candidate. That is the word your network uses when it wants to pretend this is medicine and not hunting. Luis has no idea he's being discussed by people he will never meet. He thinks he is in Houston for work. He rents a mattress in a crowded apartment, sends money home when he can, and trusts anyone who sounds like they know how the city works. Men like him do not disappear because nobody cares. They disappear because too many people already know exactly how much they are worth. Then your phone vibrates again. Move now. The message says, buyer is ready. And if you are going to find a body in America without making noise, you do not begin in a hospital. You begin on the street. Morning comes fast, and now you are the one walking the blocks where America hides the people it can afford to lose. You move through the bus station, the day labor corners, the check cashing shops, the cheap motels with flickering vacancy signs, and the sidewalks outside convenience stores where men stand with backpacks and tired eyes, waiting for somebody to offer them a chance. 3 weeks ago, you were one of them. Broke, sleeping in your car, taking delivery gigs, eating whatever was cheapest. Then a man in a pressed shirt sat beside you near the Greyhound terminal, bought you coffee, and offered you a job that sounded clean. Find healthy men traveling alone. Men with no family in the city, no stable paperwork, no one important expecting them by nightfall. Tell them there is a paid medical screening. Mention cash, a free meal, a bed for the night, maybe a lead on roofing work. Keep it simple, keep it friendly, do not push too hard. Desperate people trust confidence, not pressure. So that is what you do. You spot them almost instantly now. The roofer from the valley who has not eaten since yesterday. The dishwasher who crossed 2 states chasing a cousin's fake job promise. The young laborer from Louisiana who got off the bus with 1 duffel bag and no phone charger. You buy breakfast tacos. You hand over prepaid SIM cards. You point them toward a motel and tell them you know somebody running a short health study that pays same day. Basic tests, you say. Easy money. They look at you with the kind of gratitude that makes you look away for half a second. Then they agree, because when a man is out of options, even a stranger can start to feel like rescue. Every blood sample you send up the chain puts money in your hand. $300, sometimes 4. Enough to keep gas in the tank, enough to make the next yes come easier than the last one. At first, you tell yourself none of this is your business. You are not forcing anyone. You are not even lying. Not exactly. But after a while, one detail starts sticking to you. 14 men in 3 months, 14 rides arranged, 14 promises made, not one of them coming back through your corner of the city. Then, just after midnight, your phone rings from a number you do not know. You answer, and for a second, all you hear is breathing. Then a weak voice says he remembers you. He says you bought him breakfast. He says he woke up in a clinic outside San Antonio with stitches in his side and pain so bad he can barely stand. Then he asks you the question you have been avoiding since the first envelope of cash landed in your hand. What did you people take from me? You do not answer him. You listen for a few more seconds, long enough to hear the panic in his breathing and the strain in his voice. Then you end the call and stare at your screen until it goes black. By morning, you tell yourself the same thing you have been telling yourself since the beginning. You are only the middleman, only the first contact, only a small piece in something larger than you. But that lie stops working the moment your handler calls and tells you that you have done well. He says you have a gift. He says the men trust you. He says it is time to stop finding people and start closing them. That is how you become a recruiter. Now you are no longer scanning crowds for healthy bodies. Now you sit across from specific people and look directly into their eyes while you sell them a future that does not exist. You learn to study desperation the way a banker studies credit, a father behind on hospital bills, a veteran sleeping in his truck outside Phoenix, A warehouse worker who got hurt off the books and has no way to sue. A migrant mother trying to pay legal fees before her children are sent back. You stop asking who is vulnerable and start asking who is breakable. The pitch changes too. No more research study, no more vague language. Now it is one kidney, one procedure, fully licensed, low risk, quick recovery, life-changing money. 15,000 if the match is good, 20 if the buyer is in a hurry, maybe more if you want them to lean forward. You get good at it because the trick is never pressure. Pressure makes people suspicious. Hope makes them obedient. You speak softly. You tell them this happens all the time. You say the body can live normally with one kidney. You say rich people pay well because they need speed. You say this is a sacrifice, not a loss. Most important, you say they are in control. By the time they sign, they think the decision belongs to them. One man stays with you longer than the others. Ethan Walker, 32, Tucson, single father, daughter with a heart condition. He comes to you already half broken by the math of his life. Rent, medication, groceries, school shoes, overdue bills. When you tell him he can solve all of it with one surgery, he does not even negotiate. He just asks how soon. Weeks later, after the procedure, he wakes up pale, shaking, and barely able to sit upright. The envelope you hand him holds less than $4,000. He counts it twice, then looks at you like he still believes this might be a mistake someone can fix. That night he calls, crying, saying the pain is getting worse and he cannot lift his daughter anymore. You let the phone ring, then block the number, because the next morning your handler gives you a new assignment. You are moving up again. This time, you will not be managing people. You will be moving what is taken from them. You learn quickly that the surgery is only half the job. Once something leaves one body, it has to reach another before time kills the deal. That is your world now. No more bus stations, no more kitchen tables, no more crying fathers. You deal in flight schedules, cold storage, forged paperwork, airport badges, burner phones, and windows that close by the minute. A kidney is not an organ to you anymore. It is a clock. In Atlanta, your handler introduces you to Nate Mercer, a former air cargo supervisor who now fixes time-sensitive problems for cash. He teaches you the new language. Nobody says kidney. They say package. Nobody says extraction. They say recovery. Nobody says the recipient is already sedated. They say the delivery window is active. Clean words keep dirty people calm. Soon you are coordinating routes across the country. A donor is taken from a recovery site outside San Antonio. The organ is sealed in a sterile cooler, labeled as biological research material, and rushed to a private cargo terminal near Atlanta. From there, it can go south to a surgical team outside Miami or north through Newark if weather closes the coast. Every leg matters. One delayed van, one suspicious clerk, one customs officer with too much curiosity, and the entire transaction collapses into spoiled tissue, burned money, and questions nobody can survive. The first time you feel real pressure, it happens on a Tuesday afternoon. A cooler moving through Newark gets flagged for random inspection. No sirens, no shouting, just a metal table in a back room and one board officer deciding whether to cut the seal. By the time you hear about it, hours are gone. The buyer in South Florida is prepped. The surgeons are scrubbed. The recovery room is ready. A family that wired $300,000 is sitting in private silence waiting for a miracle, and you are staring at your phone, calculating how long a human organ stays valuable before it becomes waste. You call a fixer you have never used before, a man Nate stored under airport services. You offer him a number so large it dries your mouth out just saying it. He leaves you in silence, then comes back and says the cooler will make the next flight. 40 minutes of viability remain when it reaches the team outside Miami. The transplant works. Everyone gets paid. That night, you pour a drink and notice your hand is perfectly steady. It should not be, but it is, and that is when you understand the next truth about this business. Moving the organ is still not the darkest part. Someone inside medicine has to make all of this look clean, and that person is about to become you. The next step takes you out of transit and into the room where everything becomes irreversible. Up to now, you have been able to hide behind movement. Cars, manifests, terminals, sealed coolers, delayed flights, but those things only matter because somewhere, under surgical lights, somebody is willing to turn a stolen chance into a functioning transplant. That is how you are introduced to Dr. Adrian Vale. Once he was respected in Chicago, the kind of surgeon whose name carried weight in private hospitals and fundraising galas. Now his reputation is damaged, his debts are real, and his talent still has value to anyone rich enough to pay for silence. He is not the best doctor you have ever met, but he may be the most useful because he can still make an illegal procedure look organized, sterile, and almost respectable. He shows you how the illusion works. Sometimes the operation happens in a private outpatient center rented after hours under false paperwork. Sometimes it is a cosmetic clinic closed for the weekend, with the signage dark and the cameras redirected. Once, in South Florida, it is a townhouse converted into a surgical suite so clean it smells more professional than some real hospitals. The recipient always gets the full performance: clean sheets, private nurse, branded medication bottles, quiet confidence. Every detail is designed to reassure a wealthy client that nothing about this is reckless. The donor gets none of that. The donor is processed, stabilized just enough, cut, closed, paid a fraction, then pushed out of the system before complications can become anyone else's problem. At first, Dr. Vale talks like a man preserving standards in a dirty world. He says if he refuses the work, someone less skilled will do it. He says recipients are going to buy organs no matter what, so at least he can reduce the risks. He says this with the calm voice of a man who has repeated the argument often enough to mistake it for truth. You nod because your business depends on men like him, believing they still have lines they would never cross. Then one night, those lines disappear. The donor is a young man named Caleb Ruiz. Healthy, nervous, underpaid, already sedated by the time you arrive. The buyer is in the next room, prepped and waiting, family money already transferred, surgical team already committed. Halfway through the extraction, Caleb's heart crashes. The monitors change first. Then the pace in the room changes with them. The anesthesiologist starts shouting numbers. Vale is suddenly moving faster, then stopping, then staring at the body like skill alone should be enough to reverse what is happening. It is not. In less than 2 minutes, you're standing in a silent operating room with a dead donor on the table and a recipient behind the next door who has paid too much to hear the word failed. Everyone turns to you, not because you are a doctor, not because you can save Caleb, but because you are the one person in the building whose job is not medicine. Your job is continuity. Your job is deciding whether this becomes a burial, a cover-up, or a replacement. And as you look at the body, then at the door behind which a wealthy stranger waits to be kept alive, you understand something cold and final. The surgeon is not running this machine. The person with the real power is the one who can make one call and find another body. After that night, you stop seeing yourself as a worker inside the system and start seeing yourself as the system itself. The operating rooms, the recruiters, the couriers, the compromised doctors, the desperate sellers, the wealthy buyers, they are no longer separate worlds to you. They are pieces on a board, and your value comes from knowing how to move them without letting any one piece see the whole game. That is when you become what people at the top quietly call a broker. Not a surgeon, not a trafficker, not a criminal, at least not in the language you use around money. A broker sounds polished, temporary, professional, a man who arranges access, a man who solves impossible problems for clients who can afford not to ask questions. You begin taking meetings in places designed to make ugly decisions feel elegant. Hotel lounges in Manhattan, private dining rooms in Miami, a rooftop bar in Las Vegas where a man in a tailored jacket asks how soon you can help his business partner. You never say what you actually provide. You talk about accelerated options, discreet medical coordination, private recovery, alternative channels. The wealthy love euphemisms because euphemisms let them buy what they want without hearing what it is. Your clients are hedge fund managers, developers, donors, men whose assistants schedule their illnesses the way other people schedule haircuts. They are frightened, but they are also used to winning, and they speak to you with the calm entitlement of people who believe money is simply another word for time. You build your reputation by making the transaction feel distant from the damage. The vulnerable side of the chain stays invisible. The suffering is kept off the table. All the client sees is a clean room, a specialist with steady hands, a recovery suite with filtered light and silence. You are selling more than a body part. You are selling moral distance. You make it possible for one person to survive by never forcing him to look directly at the person who paid the real price. Soon the numbers get larger and the risks get quieter. A man in Palm Beach needs a liver. A family representative in New York wants assurances. A donor pipeline in Texas starts producing matches faster than expected. Money moves through consulting retainers and vague invoices, always dressed up to look less ugly than it is. You start believing you are untouchable. Not because you're careful, but because you have made yourself difficult to describe. Everyone in the network knows only one fragment of you. A voice, a first name that may not be real. a habit of changing hotels before sunrise. Then the balance shifts. A reporter in Washington starts digging into one of the clinics linked to your network. Around the same time, a recruiter in El Paso is arrested on unrelated charges, and suddenly, federal agents are asking questions that sound too close to your life. You tell yourself, he cannot hurt you. He does not know enough. But fear does not need facts. Fear only needs possibility. For the first time in years, every phone vibration feels personal. Every unfamiliar face in a lobby feels patient. And every success you built begins to look less like power and more like evidence. And that is when you finally understand something even richer than your clients do. You were never above this machine. You were only standing closest to the demand that kept it alive. What finally reaches you is not a police raid, not a courtroom, not a headline with your name on it. It is something far more dangerous. It is need. After years of arranging the chain for other people, you find yourself standing on the side of it that always paid the most. The side that never sees the motel rooms, never hears the late night calls, never smells the antiseptic in a converted townhouse. The side that only feels time running out inside its own body. Your doctor closes the file in front of you and speaks in the careful tone rich men pay for. Your kidneys are failing. The decline is accelerating. The official list is too long, the legal path too uncertain, and your prognosis too short for patients to be anything but expensive denial. He never tells you to call anyone. He does not have to. Men like you have spent your whole life learning how power works when no one says the important part out loud. You leave the office with a numb hand, sit in the back of a black SUV, and stare at your reflection in the tinted glass until you finally understand the truth you used to sell to other people. When the wealthy are desperate enough, morality becomes a scheduling problem. So you make the call. The voice that answers is calm, polished, almost comforting. No crude language, no mention of theft, coercion, or blood. Only options: timing, compatibility, recovery, discretion. The same language you once used to protect clients from the shape of what they were buying now protects you from the shape of what you are asking for. You do not ask where the organ will come from. You do not ask whose life will be cut open to extend your own. You ask how soon. The answer comes back in the tone of a concierge confirming a reservation. Soon enough. 2 weeks later, you walk through a private clinic in South Florida that looks cleaner than any legitimate hospital you have ever visited. Quiet hallways, soft lighting, staff who move with the confidence of people trained never to hesitate in front of money. Everything is designed to keep your mind on the outcome and away from the source. You sign where they tell you to sign. You nod through a briefing you barely hear. When the anesthesiologist asks if you are ready, you say yes, because by then you have already crossed the real line. The surgery is only the paperwork of a decision you made days ago. When you wake up, the nightmare appears to have worked. Your numbers improve. The pain is managed. Your family cries from relief. The world begins fitting back into place around the miracle of your continued life. For a while, that is enough. Then a report breaks about a trafficking ring uncovered in the same region where you had your procedure. Unlicensed surgical sites, missing records, coerced donors, one dead young man without a confirmed identity. You read it once, then again, slower this time. Your hand drifts to the scar on your side, and for the first time since the operation, you stop thinking of it as a mark of survival and start thinking of it as evidence. You close the article, you go pick up your daughter, you answer emails, you sit through dinner, you do everything a living man is supposed to do, but the machine does not leave you now, because this time you are not standing outside it, directing the flow. This time it is under your skin. And as the car carries you home through clean streets and guarded gates, one thought keeps moving beside you in the dark. The entire system only exists because people like you decide their life is worth any price as long as someone poorer pays it first.